Coming at you with a new episode of Odds and End Zones on the BGN Radio Podcast Network. I'm your host, Shamus Clancy, the Deputy Sports Editor, the new Deputy Sports Editor at PhillyVoice.com. Joined, as always, by my boy, Zo. Zo, how's it going?
What's up, bro? What a news day.
What a news day.
Hours. Yeah.
We're recording, just so you know, this podcast will probably be up Thursday morning. I'm assuming maybe late Wednesday night, depending on what our great producer, Rachel, has cooking today. But we're recording this at 3:30 on Wednesday, about an hour or so ago. News breaks, and not the news I was expecting to receive today. Carson Wentz, former Eagles quarterback, and now former Indianapolis Colts quarterback, has been traded to the Washington Commanders. Carson being a commander just feels very fitting.
Commander Carson.
They flipped second-round picks this year. Washington is parting with a 2022 third to Indianapolis as well, and a 2023 third. That could be a second if he reaches those games played, snaps played benchmarks that were in place last season. So we're doing that whole thing all over again, Eagles. I'm sure, BGN, Brandon Lee Gallon, or Philly voice Jimmy Kempsey will be tracking those all season long.
Yeah.
I guess Wentz would need to play in at least 70% of the snaps, and for Washington to make the playoffs, which certainly won't happen, or play in at least 75% of the snaps overall to send that second rounder instead of a third rounder to Indianapolis. I made a high-pitched yelp when I saw, because I was already on my phone, had it opened.
Right.
And the Twitter push notification just showed up at the top of the screen real quick. And I saw Adam Schefter tweeted, Colts trade quarterback Carson Wentz, and then it said WASHI, and I was like, no effing way. And then I opened it and I was like, are we doing this? Are we really doing this?
We're doing
this. Is this really going to happen? Is this real life?
This is real life, man. We got, like I said, we keep our enemies close in this city. We got Ben Simmons in the same division, and now we got Carson Wentz in the same division. It's funny because I feel like almost in the same vein of the NBA waiting for a Ben Simmons trade to happen. I feel like people were waiting for Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson situation to shake out right before they begin to make their move. So I think we saw obviously those two big dominoes fall. Aaron Rodgers is coming back to Green Bay, and like they haven't disclosed a contract yet, at least according to him. But then yesterday, Russ gets traded to the Broncos. So I think now teams who would have or should be in the market for a quarterback are starting to make their moves. And obviously, the Commanders felt like Carson is or will be or should be in the running for a guy. But I can't imagine you just bring him in for competition, like not for what they gave up. Like he's probably gonna be their day one starter.
That guy likes competition for sure.
Right. And if anybody loves competition, it's that guy for sure. So I'm sure the idea is he's brought in to earn the top dog position, but not where I expected him to go. I think my first thought would have been somewhere in the AFC, like maybe the Jets or something. Maybe the Jets got tired of.
I was thinking Pittsburgh.
Yeah, you know what? That's another. So I was talking to Patrick Araya mentioned Pittsburgh, and I was giving him some crap about it. About him.
He's very Pittsburghy.
He's super Pittsburghy. Yeah, even the chin strap is super Pittsburghy.
Yeah. And I think what you said about the Rodgers and Russell Wilson dominoes falling is exactly what had played out here. Mm-hmm. Because the Russell Wilson news broke, I would say about 2 hours at max.
Yep.
After we got the news that Rodgers was signing a new extension, new contract with Green Bay. And then I'm sure Washington, we heard that Washington had made a play for Russell Wilson that didn't work out, obviously now that he's in Denver. And I guess it's like, you're trying to go out to eat, you're on a date or with your, gang of your friends, and, Pizzeria Vetri's booked and Zahava's booked, and you just go to Burger King.
Yeah. Yep. Go get yourself a rodeo burger, call it a night.
Yeah. Got the nice North Dakota, the bison burger, we could call that. The new Burger King bison burger special.
Yeah, it's full of protein, whatever. But I think the other part of that, right, is also realizing, what your other chips are. Like they may have thought that, Wentz is better than anything they might get in the draft or anything that might come up this week. And I mean, we could debate that, but I would sooner. I don't envy them at all because I don't think that the position that they're in right now is one where you can be like, we're one Carson Wentz away. One, Carson is smoked. Like I just think the guy doesn't have it anymore. And two, for as talented as that defense was, and for the talented skill guys they have, a lot of those dudes seem to be injury prone. Like, what have we said the past 2 years about that team? Like, if they get healthy, we might have a problem with them, or if they get healthy, that this might be a good game if they're healthy. So like, they have other issues outside of needing a quarterback that I'll be interested to see how they address.
Wentz needs to be in the perfect environment to succeed, and he kind of had that in Indianapolis to a degree, and he played okay this season. It was a microcosm of his last 2 years in Philadelphia smack together, where he had, pretty good numbers like he did in 2019, leads the Eagles to 9-7 to make the playoffs, they win the division, but also mixed in the head assery of his 2020 season and the hero ball. He threw, I saw in that Jeff McClain article today, he threw 15 left-handed passes in 2021, which feels illegal almost. And he's going from Indianapolis to, Jim Irsay is a little all over the place, but really good organization. Otherwise, consistently been good during the 21st century. He's going to the most disastrous organization in North American professional sports. I can't see this being a marriage that works out in any way because of the nonstop issues that have pervaded this organization, Washington, the Washington football team, the Washington R-words, Washington Commanders, whatever you want to call them, since Dan Snyder took over, and I believe either 99 or 2000. And then there's front office issues because you see that, people are suing each other left and right from the top to the bottom of that organization. And you're bringing a guy who's had 2 seasons as erratic for both on-field and off-the-field reasons. Talking non-criminal stuff, obviously. I don't want to compare it to people who are dealing with true legal issues, but I'm talking behind the scenes locker room stuff. More than any player I can really remember. He's going from a great situation, which he, crapped the bed with at the end, to one of the worst organizations I've ever seen.
And if you think about it, to really top it off, right? He's a guy who, for all intents and purposes, hasn't really had the great rapport with coaches either.
No.
So when you talk about needing the perfect environment, it includes a coach who will handhold and be okay with him not making the improvements he needs to make, and him, overthrowing, underthrowing, still throwing the same interceptions that he's thrown, 3 years ago. Perfect environment doesn't just mean, he needs the perfect locker room and perfect fan base. He needs everything built around him. And there's only in the NFL and in NFL history, there's only been a couple of guys who've been able to do that. He's not as talented, and two, he just doesn't warrant that kind of coddle. And so I don't see a situation where this works out well for any party. But if you're him, you're clearly going into this saying, here I go, maybe my last year in the NFL.
Because his last shot ever to start.
Yeah.
And really, I feel like we've talked about this before, and I think it's a common refrain for a lot of people. It's hard to imagine him ever being a backup, to ever have that role. He is not a Sage Rosenfels player. Do you know what I mean? He's not going to spend the next 7 years of his career backing up guys, tutoring young guys, making those 2-3 spots, spot starts a year. A team drafts a project with their 16th overall pick. They'll say, let's run out Carson Wentz for the first 5 games of the season until we till we throw X prospect in there.
Right.
Maybe that's his future, but I don't even see him being really willing to do that unless he's just like, hey, maybe I can just bank another 30 mil as a backup Chase Daniel style.
Right.
I don't even really see that happening with him, just personality-wise. And the guy brings baggage with him. He brings a media circus with him. We talk about this in terms of other players who have dealt with it for a lot of different reasons. You think of like, no one's assigned Tim Tebow to be their third-string quarterback because like is he fine as a third-string quarterback? Sure, but why are you dealing with the circus? And I'm not sure it'll ever really stop with Carson Wentz, given how high his peak was in 2017.
And I think that he doesn't strike us. Well, we know how he plays with his back against the wall, so he doesn't strike me as a back against the wall. I gotta win at all costs type guy. And from his history here, we know that that's literally the case with him. He's not a big game, let me go out and show who I am type person and type player. So I can't even be like him knowing that this is probably his last chance to be a starter is going to fuel him. Probably not. Like, the guy's made a ton of money in the league, and like you said, like for all we know, he could suck this year or like play well enough to where he parlays it into maybe not another starter position, but into like a Chase Daniel type spot where someone pays him to be the highest paid backup in the league. Like this league is so wonky and so silly that I would not put it past anyone to make him an expensive backup.
And also going to be a case where he burns out this year worse than he did in Indianapolis. Maybe it's closer to being on par with the way his 2020 season went with the Eagles. And he's saying, hey, I made tens of $millions in my career. I just turned 29, 30. I have a wife. I have a kid. I'm just going to go buy a mansion ranch, 1,000-acre type place in rural North Dakota and live out my days as like a local legend who, got the shaft. Everyone loves him, kisses his feet, kind of like you imagine a guy who burned out in the NBA and goes and, hangs out in Durham, North Carolina because he was great at Duke or something like that. Like bounces around there, does a little radio pregame show, during the football season. And if that's his life and he's happy, whatever, it turns out he's going to have a more lucrative career in life than me. But at the same time, he's an NFL player to be judged by a different standard. And we're just evaluating what we see right now. And he's going from a situation, we talked about perfect situation, terrible situation. His coach last year literally handpicked him to come there. Carson Wentz didn't want to play for any other coach besides him. That guy gives him a vote of no confidence at the combine. They ship his ass out the next week. Who wants him if Frank Reich doesn't want him? You think, Ron Rivera is the head coach. Scott Turner is the offensive coordinator in Washington. Is Scott Turner going to turn Carson Wentz in a 2017 pre-injury, running around, third down and fourth down maestro, hero ball savior guy? No.
Good luck, Scott.
You guys might be sharing the unemployment line last year because of each other. It's a mutually negative relationship.
I would like to be you want to be a fly on that wall to see his reaction to it, because here is a coach who now you're responsible for rectifying, rehabbing the career of Carson Wentz, right? One, because you need to win, and two, because your job is on the line officially.
Where would Carson Wentz be on January 6, 2023?
At the Capitol. But it's I would like to equate it to like tying your career as a coach to a mercurial star point guard or something. Like Larry Brown's entire career is based on how he was able to get Allen Iverson to buy in, right? And like there's a lot of those that went the other way, where coaches were just like, just like either fired or quit or whatever because they just couldn't get along with the star player, or a star player got shipped out because of various same reasons. So like I always like to try to get the coach's standpoint on what it's like to have your wagon hitched to a guy like that, because that's it. Like that's what they're looking at now. Like regardless of what happens, this guy's job is now rests on the shoulders of Carson Wentz.
He ain't sleeping tonight.
No. I'm sure he's getting like calls and text play. His boys from around the league are probably like, dude, like, woo, yeah.
We might have a senior offensive consultant job lined up next year for you, bro, if this doesn't work out.
Right? Like, yo, like call like his college boys are probably like, dude, if you want to come to USC, like we can maybe be like a passing game coordinator. Come holler at us next year.
He's the new passing game coordinator at St. Joseph's Preparatory School.
That's right, baby. We get the best and the brightest. Bring them on.
Scott Turner is the next man up at 17th and Gerard.
And he's like coming in talking about what he did with offenses. He's like, dude, he's like, hey, I sent 6 quarterbacks to the Senior Bowl. You know me.
Yeah. I once scored 20 points in a game with Carson Wentz. Post-injury. I think that Clowney concussion thing messed him up. And I mean that like in a serious kind of sad way more than I know we like having fun with him and, making fun of him and stuff. But I feel like that was a thing that just changed his career. And I might have had concussions growing up playing football and not realize it, but that's obviously a different era. Yeah. I can't speak to what that was. And from the things I heard, it was like a serious concussion. I can't differ. Neither of us are medical people. I can't differentiate between a serious concussion, what's not, minor, whatever. Yeah. But from what I heard, not that I'm a big source and news guy, but I hear a couple of rumblings here and there, was that if they had somehow came back and won that game against Seattle, it was so bad he wouldn't have been able to play the next week.
Oh, I totally believe that.
Which makes a lot of – I mean, that's a quick turnaround on a monstrous hit.
And my understanding of concussion protocol is it's more than just like you have to be able to sit in a room with the lights on for a little bit. Like
take those computer tests. I did those back in the day.
Take the computer tests. I think they make you write your name out a couple of times, and they test like it's like some neurological stuff you go through. But I mean, not being able to sit in a room with the lights flickering on for 5 minutes is probably more than just like I can't throw a football next week. It's probably like, dude, I need to
rethink your life.
I need to take a look at and reflect on if I should even be playing football anymore. So I totally agree. I know a lot of people have mentioned that before, when he was still an Eagle as to what may be troubling him or what maybe caused the downslope. And I totally buy that because I think that I think there's a lot of players who suffered injuries like that, neurological injuries like that, who just haven't been the same. And like not in the sense that like it made you it made you slower or like anything like that, but in the sense that it affected your processing, how you look at the field, how you feel when you see a dude beat your guard, you know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff, I think is what messed him up from that hit, is that he now feels like the next Clowney hit is every play. Like he looks terrified in the pocket now.
That only builds off of it's undeniable Eagles don't win a Super Bowl if they don't trade up for Wentz. He doesn't play unbelievably that year. But the blowing out his knee completely changed the trajectory of his career, obviously for the worse for him, unfortunately for him, in the sense that he was never the same scrambler, both because of pure athleticism. I think he was terrified also, which is like, as a normal person, I get as an NFL player, you're an NFL player. Right. And then he has a broken bone or whatever, fracture in his back in 2018. He gets that kind of stealth bench after that overtime loss in Dallas. And then the Clowney hit the following year. So those are 3 injuries that it's really hard not to be gun shy about. And they suffered them back to back to back while watching his backup become the most beloved figure in the history of the city since, Benjamin Franklin or whatever the hell you want to say. And it's fair to wonder if does he love football? And I don't mean that in a way like Ben Simmons doesn't love basketball. Let's get him out of the city. Like if the guy just was done with football and he kind of is just out of it, like I get it as a human being. And again, few people love making fun of him more than me, and I'm having a field day on Twitter. Everyone is. But if he just doesn't like football anymore, it's not a situation where I'm thinking he's a gigantic baby for that specifically. It's like, bro, you're scared that the next hit could be it for you, and like you're not gonna be able to walk. You certainly don't want to have another concussion. You don't want to have a million injuries. You don't want to be Earl Campbell, unable to throw the ball around with your kids on your duck hunting ranch in North Dakota because you can barely your body is just broken down.
I remember this was actually this was a while ago, but the story we had last week. Dirk Nowitzki was saying that he wishes he was asked like did he have any regrets from his playing time, and he said he wishes he would have quit like a year or two earlier,
Yeah,
simply because he feels like those last couple of years took way more off his body than he realized.
yeah,
Now like he can do it, but like it hurts to run around with his kids out back, and play soccer. And like it's just, it's tough to get out of bed some mornings. It's like you mentioned, like, you know, as human beings, you have to respect that, right? So like, Andrew Luck got hurt, rehab, came back, and then decided one day that was it. He was done. Regardless of when it was. Listen, if the guy the guy's like, look, man, like I can't do it anymore. Like my mental is too messed up, and I feel like the next hit is gonna be the one that does it for me. And I still got a whole rest of life to live. I mean, what are you gonna do? I think that the human aspect of that is very real. I truly I understand it for sure.
Did you ever hear the story about young Dirk and Barkley?
Yeah,
Should I tell it? I'll tell it for listeners. So obviously we love basketball too.
yeah.
It's a fun aside. Barkley's a Philly guy in a way. So it's like 96, 97, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Dirk got drafted, I want to say 97, because that was the year I can't really say, the Sixers passed on Pierce and
yeah, those
Dirk back to back for Larry Hughes.
Yeah.
So it's a year or two before that. Dirk's, I guess, like a teenager probably. And you at Team USA, I don't want to say it's an Olympic game, maybe some kind of world championship exhibition game, whatever. Yeah. And they're playing Germany. And Barkley sees this kid is just absolutely torching Scottie Pippen. Like Scottie Pippen can just not guard him. He's just getting off his shot everywhere. And he's at such a young age that after the game, Barkley goes over to him. He's like, I'll give you $50,000 to go to Auburn right now. What if he did that? That's a huge NBA what if he went to college instead of just going right to the league.
Right to, yeah.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about that story is that today that's probably like 50 grand. Then it's probably like 250 grand today. Like guys should get paid. I don't care what anybody says. Guys.
Dirk's got that Volkswagen commercial down pat. If he's if he's on, like, he'd be on Gonzaga today, right? He'd be Gonzaga.
Yeah, he'd be on Gonzaga today. Or St. Mary's. Like Gonzaga and
St. Mary's. Yeah,
gets all those dudes. So it would have been. It's a funny story to tell. This like it's on the lines of like Zion's stepdad saying, telling Coach K, we need 300 grand to come to Duke, or like, there's countless numbers of stories of like what ifs, right? And like, I think that in the football sense, I always hear that the Cam's dad, so Cecil Newton telling schools or telling Texas A&M, I think it was like, it's 100 grand to get us. Like you want to sit down, you even want to sit down with us. It's like 100 grand or whatever. And
is
then
that a Tyler Times exclusive news bit?
Yeah, right. Shout out to our guy. He's got a whole podcast about it. But it's like I think that those kinds of stories also factor into a guy's story. Like it feels like it's an added layer that makes it even more it's even more interesting to you, like the stories of like what got guys to where they are. Like there was a, to go off on a quick tangent, it's March Madness time, so whatever.
You can get away with the b-ball talk right now.
James Wiseman didn't play almost at all at Memphis because he took money. Took like 10 grand and like to move from Penny Hardaway or whatever. But like there's countless numbers of stories like that. And the story is never what the player did to hurt themselves or to hurt the game. It's how it made the school look. So like these,
Yeah.
like these, it's never the player is never in mind until it matters on how the school looks. So like this stuff happens all the time. It's just some people are better secret keepers than others.
Yeah.
Like that's what the interesting thing to me. Like there's that Dietrich tweet. Somebody tweeted last week about like, you know, why watch James Harden score 60 when you can watch the next I think it's like drywall salesman of America miss 10 jump shots in a row in the March Madness game. But like
Yeah.
the actual idea is like this is still life for a lot of these guys. And it goes back to your point about Wentz. Like this is life. Like football is a part of his life, but like now you ask the question, like, is it all his life now? And it doesn't seem like it is.
I want to finish up. This is a gambling podcast, technically. Calvin Ridley, who had sat out part of the 2021 season due to some mental health issues. I can't obviously speak to what he was going through, but give some sense of respect to him for dealing with whatever he was dealing with. And during that period, he had gambled on some games, including a game for the Atlanta Falcons. Claims he bet on them to win. He was doing some 5, 8, 37 leg parlays potentially, which is very much right up our alley specifically.
Yeah, we love it.
Can't imagine he won any because if he included the Falcons on it, he probably wasn't going to win. So a lot of guys, and he claims he only spent $1,500 on gambling. And I'm thinking, was that one bet? Did he do a $1,500 8-leg parlay? And this is an issue where this type of thing isn't going to go away anywhere soon. And maybe it's one of the lone positions in sports, and I guess the world where I feel a little conservative about, where I really don't think players should be betting on the game. And it is a weird situation, obviously, because over the last 2 years specifically, the influx of money in the sports world after them trying to stop sports gambling for having any sort of impact and legality in the sporting world for a century, really, for thinking back to that Chicago White Sox, Black Sox team from 1919, where it's been over a century where that was the last truly crazy gambling scandal that rocked sports. Maybe not boxing. I can't really speak to that. And this is only the first one. And I think he was using his own FanDuel or DraftKings account, which is probably one of the dumbest things in the world could have done. And I'm sure he's not the only NFL player that gambled last year, and maybe the only one who was, again, potentially dumb enough to use his own name and his own account. But I'd wager he's not the first person that did that last year, not the last. And I'm sure there were players doing it this year. And it's a weird situation. And I think back to Pete Rose, which I think was terrible. And people say he only bet on his team to win. I'm like, the guy denied doing it for 20 years. Are we sure he really did that? Like, who's to believe? And there's so many ways. And I was listening to a podcast today that talked about it too. There are so many ways to manipulate your team winning.
Yeah.
That goes beyond just this, like the game. Like, what if you had, you had the over, you parlayed the Falcons and over to win, just a random situation. I'll run through this hypothetical. And, he gets the ball somehow and there's like 20 yards of free space in front of him. But there's like 45 seconds on the clock left. And it really makes sense just to fall down to the 2-yard line, that move. But he just runs in the end zone because he either wants the over hit or the spread to hit. Stuff like that influences the game, even though when you're thinking about, he bet his team to win. Right. There are so many things and so many things you could bet on in today's world that it's impossible to think that, just betting on the win. There's so much more that goes into that.
Like you can bet on when your team scores in the quarter. Like down, it gets super granular. And listen, I'm always
we gamble a lot, so we get it. But we're not in the NFL.
I'm not in the NFL, and if my employer came to me and said, listen, we need you to not gamble on yourself or your team to win or lose a game, I'm probably listening, right? Because I think they said it's like a $16 million mistake for $1,500 or whatever they said. Like the other he was going to make next year or something like that. But
imagine if that 37 $1,500 parlay hit though.
I know. I mean, that's probably what he was saying. That's probably what, you know, like I agree. I wish that he was smarter about that stuff.
I feel bad for the guy a little bit,
yeah.
but he's still an idiot at the same time. Though I feel bad for him.
That's what I'm saying. Like he's an idiot, and I'm sure once he thinks about it, he'll say the same thing. But I really wish he would have thought better of it, or like just had a buddy like promise, yo, you run the account, I'll fund it, but like here's the bets. You know what I mean? Like you got to be smarter than that.
Chris Carter says they have a fall guy at the rookie symposium. Now he has to tell them you have to have a betting guy. Like all the bets go through that guy.
Fall guy.
I'm not like only being half jokingly when I'm saying that too. Like if you're gonna bet, which really you shouldn't be doing if you're a professional athlete, because I believe like for your own benefit in terms of your future health and career in that league, but also to this maybe potentially antiquated idea about the health or the integrity of the game, whatever you want to say without it, even though I sound 87 years old saying that. Have someone else be your betting guy.
Dude, just easy, make it easy on yourself, please, God. Like that's all you can say is like, don't be stupid. Just make it so much easier on yourself than you are.
Yeah, he's Venmoing, a guy I went to high school with $2,000 for like Chipotle run in the Venmo description.
Right. Like, yo, this is for the Chick-fil-A run. Like, all right.
10-inch sub at 10-inch hoagie at Wawa. Thanks. $3,700.
Yo, here's $5,000. This is for the Finks.
That was good. I should have said that first. It's really weird, and not saying that I'm sure in the duration of this podcast, this won't be the last time we talk about whether it's the NFL or the NBA or God knows. I think of it at the collegiate level. We have the infamous scandal that played a role in, what was it, the UMass team or BU team or BC?
I think it was UMass.
It was UMass that played a role, and this is like played a big role in Goodfellas, the movie. And there was an ESPN 30 for 30 about it.
There's one 30 for 30, yeah.
I might throw it on right now after this podcast, to be honest. I'm off today from Philly Voice, off yesterday today. I will be going down to the arena tomorrow night, my second game in person for them, doing a little, obviously Kyle Neubeck is our main Sixers beat writer, always doing an incredible job getting scoops, but I'll be doing a story on interviewing some people about Simmons. I might want to tweet out tomorrow, see, I did it's like the opposite of the piece I did last week. I was like, how excited are you to see James Harden? How much did you pay for these tickets? When did you buy them? It's like, how much do you hate Ben Simmons? Are you going to boo him? How much do you pay for these tickets? Where you're setting all your thoughts and stuff like that.
I love that. I'll be at
You going tomorrow?
I will be at the prep tomorrow.
Nice.
The
Quadruple
A. The Trusted Process Club is having a watch party.
I saw they posted me on their Instagram. I felt like I made it.
So I'll be hanging with those dudes for the game. We got some they got some pizza and some other snacks and stuff. So we'll do some, I'll do some live tweeting with them and stuff like that. And we might.
I should do an article on them coming up. Before we get to playoff season, go back to the school for a day.
Oh, dude, they would love that.
Talk to Howie, talk to the kids. I think that's a good idea. Make a note of it. Let's bring it up tomorrow night. And I'll talk to Howie afterwards. Yeah, we're always moving and grinding on BGN Radio.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know what? He would love that. And also, to be honest with you, he would put you in front of the kids more than like he would hand you off to like the kids and just let them handle it. Like he's really good with that, with the way he runs the club. And I know that the guys would be super appreciative of that and would want to, pick your brain about Sixers and Birds and stuff. But that actually would be a really cool story. They love that.
I think one time I went and spoke to a class of kids. I'm not talking about the time. Zo and I went back. We're both graduates. St. Joe's Prep, obviously, if you're listening, you probably know that. Went back and spoke to them. And I think like 2019 to talk to their Sixers Trusted Process Club, whatever they call it there. And I want to say 2014, 2015, one of my grade school teachers in South Philly was teaching at the Penn Alexander School.
Okay.
In West Philly. That's right next to University of Pennsylvania's campus. I went to Penn, graduated from Penn. It took a little while to graduate. That's part of the story here. And so when I was a junior, I interned the whole year for the Philadelphia Daily News. So I was like kind of working as a full-time staff writer, even though I was an intern, taking the full load of classes, whatever. I go in there, bring some newspapers to show to kids, talking about this successful life. If you're like a city kid, you can grow up, you can, be in the newspaper, you can write for the newspaper, have a nice life, go to a good college, whatever, quote unquote, good college, whatever you want to do. And then like a year or two later, after I had done some knucklehead things, dealt with some mental health issues, took some time off of school, and then I never came back to the class. Maybe I will eventually, but me and the teacher, she and I talk about going back sometimes. And I thought the next time I go back, it was like Tyrone Biggums speaking to the class like, hello, little boys and little girls. Drugs and alcohol have ruined my life.
Welcome back, Dave Chappelle. It's funny seeing you here.
Yeah. Coming in just like I probably had a nice like sport coat, shirt on buttons, coming in like a starter jacket. I have my UCLA snapback on.
Looking like a police detective. That's awesome. How
you do, fellow kids?
That's a good one.
How is your vines going?
How are the vines? Are you guys?
How are them vines going, yo?
I saw a funny TikToker yesterday. Made me laugh.
You kids big on TikTok? I know what that made me think of in Superbad. You guys got MySpace?
You guys on MySpace or what? She wants it, man. She wants it. Who's gonna get it?
Oh man! But Thursday night, so like tomorrow, if you listen to this tomorrow, it comes out recording Wednesday again. Crazy week in Philly sports, even though the two main culprits, I guess you could say, are no longer here. But that's just nothing is more Philly than Carson Wentz returning to the NFC East, and there's nothing more Philly than Ben Simmons coming back to Philadelphia, some kind of crazy conspiracy, grievance, entrapment situation on national TV.
Yeah, like
so. Whatever happens, it's going to be entertaining as hell, and that's really when you're working in the sports world. If we're podcasting like we are, or writing, or whatever you might be doing, it's kind of all you can ask for.
That's all you can ask for. Yep.
Yeah. Anything else to plug? You good?
I'm good, man.
Anything else to say? Any college hoop stuffs before Selection Sunday you want to get out?
So, my only word to our faithful followers: pay attention to your conference championship week, but don't pay too much attention. Don't fall into the trap. The team wins their conference championship doesn't necessarily mean they'll do well in the tournament. Just means they played really well for 3 days straight. Selection Sunday is going to be fun. I usually like to sit down on my couch, grab a brew and some wings, and just literally veg out for the whole 3 hours and listen to the guys yell and stuff. So that'll be fun. Next week when we'll talk, I'll break out. The bracket's tough because it's you gotta do each region and stuff. But I'll break out my Final Four next week when we talk.
Yeah, we'll do a little Final Four or just March Madness next week.
But yeah, other than that, have fun betting. Watch some hoops this weekend. It's gonna be a fun, action-packed sports weekend. We love it.
Grab the slice of my Quakers plus 600 to win the Ivy League tourney. So they are Ivy League tournament is for someone who is a fan of Penn basketball is very good. If I was a fan of either Harvard or Princeton basketball, I'd be really mad because it just kind of it's an 8-team league.
Yeah. And 4 teams make the playoffs.
And the Penn actually has a losing record, and they could be like 1 game under 500 and make the tournament if they win these next two.
That's exactly to my previous point. Like, if they win their conference tournament, just use trepidation.
And I texted Lola about this today. I think it would end up being like a top 5 sports moment for me ever if it was either 15th or 16th seeded Penn versus 1 or 2 seed Nova, and they beat them somehow, which they'd lose. Whatever the spread is, bet Nova. I'm sure I'm going to quad bomb it if they make the tournament.
Well, Shire wouldn't talk to you for a year.
He deletes my number from his phone.
He deletes you for a year.
I get uninvited to the wedding. All right, that's it for me. We'll definitely do some college hoop stuff, and who knows, there could be 3 more quarterback trades by the time we talk next week.
I'm sure there'll be a ton more to talk about too. So we'll be ready and strapped.
Yep. Talk to you all later. So, my man, thank you.
Of course, bro.